All right, I'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right. All right, so need approval for the agenda. Would like to make a couple of changes. We'll move finance up to right before consent agenda, so Lewis doesn't have to sit through the whole meeting. And also, did anyone anyone would like to move anything from the consent agenda? Did any changes to anything in the consent agenda? I did have a couple questions on the contract recommendations. So we'll move that out of the consent agenda. All right. All right, any objection to those changes to the agenda?
No.
All right, there are none. We'll approve it by unanimous consent. All right, general public comment. Anyone here from the public wish to speak tonight? All right. All right, then now we're on to finance.
So the year is over for FY23 and the books have been closed as of today. All the accounts have been reconciled. Included in the packet was a summary of how we ended the year as well as an expense report. If you have any questions, I can answer tonight. I can follow up with you via email or phone call regarding any specific items in that expense report. After you've had a chance to review it, if you want to follow up, you can email me or call me, whatever. If you think that I don't have to. So Wealth brings it into the surplus a lot larger than we had anticipated due to a number of reasons that we didn't know at the time. So the surplus is $131,000. I've highlighted some of the significant variances, not all of them by any means. We had a surplus of approximately $50,000 in salary and benefits, and some of that was by shifting some of the local expense to grant funding for new positions due to the ESSER funds that we had available. We looked at that eventually so that you can have local savings, and that was for a budgeted position that remains in the budget. For when those ESSER funds are gone, we still have that funding available. Number two, which was the item that we didn't know about until recently, was the special ed assessment refund of $50,000. I didn't know we were running a surplus in the special ed fund, but special ed being so volatile, I hate to promise anything because you could have a student movement that costs a significant amount of money for students that maybe were close to place and those prices not being accounted for. So I did report earlier in the year that we were running a surplus, and it grow. We were both savings in salary and benefits due to on-bill positions and savings due to having positions hired at a lower rate than what we had budgeted. That was one of the major factors resulting in that surplus. The third item was tuition was actually a negative. We did have an increase in tuition due to increase in students that had moved in mid-year after budgets were set. So that was a negative $53,000. We had a $30,000 surplus in transportation, and that was mainly due to only running one bus at the beginning of the year, as many of you most likely remember. So we did receive refunds for that bus shortage, resulting in those savings. We had some food service savings of about $15,000 under budget, and that was due to an increase in revenue. We had $16,000 in substitute savings. So what we did for the substitutes first year, we were running an in-house program. When we had tele services, we were paying $1.45 for every dollar we were paying out, 45 cents of that going towards overhead. Moving that in-house, we were able to save on that overhead and put that towards increasing wages. Our subs are now making $15 an hour, where they were only making $12.50 an hour last year through tele services. So that was significant. That's for the para subs. The teacher subs were making 14, that's $15 an hour. So everybody with all subs are making flat $15 an hour this year. Even with that increase in wages due to the savings and overhead, we were still able to come in savings this year. Some of that is that, and we've talked about this many times, I mean, the job market's difficult and we've been working hard to find subs, but especially in smaller towns like Wells and Middletown, there's not as many available. In some of the larger towns we are pulling from a more geographic region. So anytime we don't have position filled, and we have that vacancy in the building and we can't fill it with sub, yes, that is difficult on the school. The offset to that is that we do have savings. We didn't fill that. Ideally, we'd like to have it sub in the building, but the offset to not having that is savings in the sub category. We had some legal fee savings, and that's mostly due to that we are not negotiating the contracts this year. We've settled both teachers and support staff. Next year, we do move back into support staff negotiations, and then the following year, teacher negotiations. So we'll see those legal fees tick back up again. And then the last one is just professional services across the board. And that's mostly due to each school has some enrichment funds and professional services funds. And with the availability of ESSER funds, we've been using less of those because we have to utilize grant funding. And so wherever possible, we are and having those local savings that we're now building into the surplus. I've also listed some of your other fund balances below. So we have 15,000 in HR reserve fund. That is money we put in to cover employee HRAs. So what that means is based on the amount that we've budgeted and put into the budget, into the reserve fund, we utilize less than we budgeted. And so that'll carry forward. Some years we'll use more, some years we'll use less. And so it's nice to build up a little bit of a reserve fund there for those years we'll have higher. We still have the Wells Capital Improvement Fund of $15,000. We are doing some projects in Wells this year, so we utilize that. We'll look and see where the budget is at the end of the year and put that money in the reserve fund, or whether we want to put it. If we have a surplus, it's probably better to keep it in the reserve fund because there's no shortage of building needs. So $15,000 doesn't do a lot, but it's better to have that for a rainy day. And then the Wells Springs Capital Reserve Fund, that's mostly due to the most recent amount that we put in after the last budget of $125,000 and then $35,000 plans. So that's it in a nutshell. The surplus in the past, it gets as soon as the year end closes, it's committed back taxpayers. So what the board can do is either put that in the budget in the following budget. So FY25 budget has a revenue, and that'll go to offset taxes. The other option is we can ask taxpayers to utilize that surplus for other means, but that would need to go to the taxpayers. So typically we've done capital improvement funds in the past, whether it be a flat dollar amount or percentage. We can talk about that a little bit more at budget time and see where the budget's falling and whether we need all of that as revenue or or if the budget were in good shape, we could ask the taxpayers to put more of that into a cap.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, like, that's something we can figure out during budgeting.
Yeah.
Just like we did last year.
We don't need to figure anything out until January.
Okay.
We have until January to make that.
All right. I did have a question, on, I don't know, page 6, for the SU assessment, it says, -4, but wasn't there, an SU, wasn't there extra money in the SU assessment? That was gonna go back to,
But this year,
yeah,
the year that just closed.
Yeah.
So in the past, of what we've done, this special ed surplus, we've given that back at the same year. The general fund surplus, we have not given that back at the same year. We've always brought that to the SU board for them to make the decision, do you want to refund it? And now in this current year, or do we want to build that into the FY 25 budget? The past few years, the board has decided, let's give it back this year. So that $100,000 that the board decided to give back as a refund, will go back to Wellsprings this year, so that'll help offset this year's budget.
okay. Yeah, just going on, I know the SU meeting was last week, and I'm just going off of that. So basically, this hasn't been this is,
That does not reflect.
Okay.
the general fund surplus. The SU special
Ed.
ed surplus is reflected in that expense report.
okay. Yeah, and then, the substitute savings, you said they were getting $15 an hour?
Yes.
Okay. And is that's figured out like at the SU level, right? Or is that something that's done? Like, I'm just curious, you know, as you mentioned, finding substitutes is hard. And is that rate gonna increase is basically what I'm asking.
So it is an SU level rate. I think that it's best to keep the rate the same across all schools.
Yeah.
Subset, go from school to school. We didn't plan any rate increase yet for this year, just because the rate increase that we gave last year was significant as far as percentages go. Yes, we are still probably on the low side as far as wages and just in the general community. You look at other major lawyers that are even us as far as our para rates and stuff go, we're paying more than that. So I mean, I'm sure an increase in that rate would be welcome, but it does have an budget impact.
Yeah.
Not knowing where we're gonna come in as far as total sub wages compared to our budget, we didn't want to increase those wages without having that data. Knowing now that we do have that data, we can look at that and probably recommend an increase, at least a modest increase.
Okay.
It may
Yeah.
not be at least for day one, but we can set a date. Say.
It's kind of like a curiosity question. I wasn't sure if I should have saved it for the SU for that, but all right.
It could be an SU discussion.
All right. Did anyone have any questions for Lewis?
Mine were kind of similar to yours.
But I mean, even though it's an SU discussion, it doesn't hurt to have that brief discussion here. And if that's something that you feel strongly about,
Okay.
then, I mean, I think it goes a lot smoother if it's something that you bring to the board, to the SU board and recommend, than if it was something that I was being recommend. And then
Yeah.
if you recommend it and I agree with you, then that's definitely something that may get approved a lot easier.
I just think we're having clearly a hard time with staffing anyway. And we already have areas that need to be filled. Even if we're only paying our subs $15 an hour, then we're just going to continue to see a staffing shortage and problem, I think, if we don't fix it sooner rather than later. In my own personal opinion, but.
Yeah, I don't think subs are doing it for the money. It's $15 isn't a lot. They can get a lot more somewhere else. It's more the flexibility that we try to sell. So I mean, you can pick and choose when you want to work. Don't feel like working that morning, you don't sign up to be a sub. If you feel like working, you can go on and see what's available and plan up for ourselves. But, and I think anything, every little bit counts. So I mean, if we can give them 3-4% raise and bump that up a little bit, I'm sure we can. And I can figure out how much we paid in rate and wages this year and what amounts.
Yeah.
As an issue as a whole.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good discussion. I mean, just in terms of, you know, when we talked about the support staff agreement and in the past years and trying to get, you know, fill in those needed positions. So I don't
We
know.
have some data available for the next board meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else have questions for Lou? All right. Is that everything?
That's everything I have. The next big thing that's coming up is budget. So we will start discussing budget at this board level in October. That's when the preliminary discussions will occur. We will look at the actual first draft of the budget in November, but October we'll talk about timeline, we'll talk about priorities, things that you want to see us searching. If there's things in September that you know about already and you want to have a brief discussion at a board level to say, okay, we want you to look closely at these things and you know about them now, then the sooner that you can let us know that if you want us to research it, the more time we will have to gather that information.
Okay.
You don't want to know today? Wait till September?
Oh, I mean, if you have things now you want to let me know while I'm here, then I won't.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I had was like the transportation stuff, but yeah, I think, you know, that combined with, at the SD level too, you know, could have a huge impact.
So I have had preliminary discussions with our transportation providers, and I knew this conversation was coming up. And so on two fronts, both one, seeing as a percentage increase as the issue, because our contract was for 5 years and it ends this year. So looking into next year, we will be under a new contract. So on that side, we're told that we should expect increases roughly around 4%. That we weren't too far off from where the environment is as far as costs for wages and gas and stuff like that. That when we did the last round of contract, that we were way behind, so we saw large increases in our contract last time. So we made up for that in the last round. This round, we should see a normal increase of 3-4%. On the Wellspring side, where the discussion that we've had about possibly eliminating the bus and going down to one route, I've had those discussions. And what I was told was that if we were to cut a bus and keep the bus time similar to what it is now, we would anticipate 50% decrease in cost. If we were to decrease a bus and then need to increase the route time, that the increase in route time, I mean, give or take, I mean, if it's only a couple minutes, that doesn't impact. But if we're talking about a significant increase in route time of like a half hour per morning and half hour at night, then we would see an increase in cost of $32.50 per hour. So if we were to see a half hour in the morning, half hour at night, you're talking about an hour per day, so that's $32.50 per day.
Wow.
Not significant. But you can keep that in mind. I mean, we don't want to keep kids on the bus too long anyway, so I wouldn't think we would be looking at increasing our bus time on the bus greater than a half hour. So you should roughly plan. I mean, that would be the max, I would think.
All right. Well, it sounds like something we could have a more in-depth discussion on probably in September. You know, Matt, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. And if I'm going too far into the weeds, let me know. I can pull back. But in terms of the busing, just curious, is there a fee associated with them looking at optimizing routes? And do we want to also ask them looking forward, if this is a 5-year contract, what the cost would be to include Middletown Springs if there were to be some sort of optimization or combining or whatever. Use that as an opportunity too before the contract to figure out what that would cost.
Yeah, I think, I think those are some really good questions that, perhaps we can have more information on and a more in-depth discussion in September. But yeah,
Developing the routes is their responsibility. They do that along with the school principals based on the students that are going to need buses. And that changes every year because you could have someone that's way off on one road that you need to transport one year, not the next. So the routes do change. I think it washes from year to year. Some years it may go up and some years it goes down. And the price doesn't change based on those small shifts. And so if we were to, if the route was to increase based on those shifts, that wouldn't change our price. But if we were to eliminate a bus and say now that one bus is still doing the whole route that the two buses was doing, that's where we would see an increase. But I think if we were to go to one, we would have to sit down with our principal and our bus provider and have them tell us they're the experts here. They're doing basis. What do they recommend? And is that in line with what we envision? I think if we were to go to one, we would have to make concessions and whether that's certain points where we're picking up or maybe not picking up in the village or whatever it is that the board decides. I think the board would set those parameters, go to the bus company, tell them, okay, here's a parameter we want to work in. What are your recommendations? How can we, is this doable? And as far as the Middletown transportation, I think that's a board discussion, and I don't think we should even approach that with the provider until the board decides if that's something we want to move forward with, because that would have a significant budget impact.
Do all schools in the SU currently start at the same time? Do we all start at the same time?
Not exactly.
No, there are a lot of variables around that, because busing. So we try to have it within the same window, but we don't have the exact same start time.
Okay, so that's something that potentially doesn't have to stay the same if something were to change in the future.
I think we look at, there's obviously, the master agreements with teacher and sports staff as we look at what that would do to this, their day and student day. So I think we could look at because really the board does determine start and end times. So that's one of the things that's within the purview of the board. So if we would look at, say, the board would discuss a later start time or a later dismissal time, that's something that can be discussed. And, then Corey, myself, and Carol would then adjust our schedules accordingly. It'd be difficult to do, obviously, now on August 9th, but as we look for the following year,
Right.
that is a discussion we could have.
Okay, thank you.
And I know that, Amanda, on that has been something that we've talked with other districts about, because busing is a real issue, a real problem, because we share, the same transportation, same drivers, and, so if we're looking at staggered times, what that does to our drivers and how would that, take care of some of our issues or problems across not just, in our SU, but say Slate Valley or RNSU or Mill River. So these are discussions we do have.
Okay. Thanks.
Matt?
Yeah, I just wanted to just clarify my last question or point. So I was just thinking, in a hypothetical world, let's say it's like 20 years from now, and there's an upper and lower school, and there's bus transportation from one to the other. So that was sort of my point. As long as it's a contract year and we can get them to do these optimizations and routes and give us figures, like, why not? Could we ask them, in that scenario, what would be the cost, and just have that in our back pocket in case 3 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, we're like, maybe we should have an upper and lower school and merge, or things of that nature. So that was sort of my point. I'm all good with the optimizations that and going from one bus to two bus. This is more like future thinking, hypothetical.
And one positive about, that I'll just throw out there with our venture contract, it does give us flexibilities, like when we were talking about potentially eliminating a bus last year. We had looked into that because we were still in the middle of our contract, and our contract did allow us to drop a bus in the middle of a contract if we just made that decision. So we do have flexibilities to make changes, whether it's add a bus or delete a bus. Obviously, add a bus is sometimes more difficult because finding bus drivers these days is very difficult. But I mean, I think it's good to know that we do have a little bit more flexibility in this contract than we do maybe in the some others to make changes.
All right. All right, well, thank you. All right, so we're gonna move on to consent agenda. We're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. That would be the minutes from June 14th, July 12th. Warrant 289, 294, 296, 298, 300, and the resignations. Good night. Thanks, Louis.
I'll move that we approve it.
All right, a motion by George. All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 All right, motion carries. All right, and then the contract recommendations, I just had a couple questions. Of course, now I have to find it. There it is. All right, the extracurricular, the maintenance substitute. I'm just curious, well, first, don't we have 3 full-time and then we have our facilities director, right? Or 2 full-time and then our facilities director?
And one of the full-time people was out for over 2 weeks. So we had one person in each building trying to get things done. So I had reached out to say, can we substitute somebody in to get some of the work done?
Okay.
And that's what kind of where that came from.
Oh, okay. So it's just to fill in, okay, because of, all right. And then, I guess my next question is the rate, doesn't the, custodial fall underneath the, support staff agreement?
I was curious though, because he's a high school kid. And so
Oh,
it's not gonna, I don't believe it's gonna be, St. Louis was very.
so, okay, so it doesn't,
Yeah.
Doesn't fall under the scale.
Yeah.
just oh, okay, so it's just an hourly. Oh,
And
you're hiring high school students? Oh, that's cool. All right. And then, yeah, I just, so, and then, my other question, it says for information purposes only. So does that mean it doesn't need board approval or?
So technically that, really board approves any certified staff, anyone who's not certified,
Okay,
doesn't go for the board, but more information, but for question, that's why I put the information for so you know that.
And is the summer substitute paid differently because it's summer, or is that why it's not the same as the $15 an hour we just discussed?
Summer school para substitute,
Yeah,
yes, it's a rate, different rate.
okay, just because it's summer, okay.
all right. And then it's the same for the stipends.
So I'll just quickly, so the stipends, where you see the involuntary assignment, so that's basically just that, in the teacher master agreement, it's what section 13.8C. Carol, because of some student enrollment, had to make some adjustments, correct? And so, the master agreement does state that, any adjustments or changes made after the last day of school, perhaps provide, staff with up to 5 days, prep time, so.
Yep. I figured it had to do with the master agreement. Okay. Yeah, that's, just some curiosity or questions, I was just curious about. All right, did anyone else have any questions about the contract recommendations? Hearing none. All right. I'll go ahead and I'll move to, accept the contract recommendation as presented. Any other discussion, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. All right, superintendent's report.
Thanks, Eric. I don't have a lot, especially, the summertime is, time for, our building administrators, get the schools ready to go, run summer programs. And, for us, just having the admin retreats, our goal is to me to get around back to the school, just do one last checkup in the next couple weeks. Just meet with our building administrators, make sure they're ready to go, staffing, and we've on those lines. So just been a good summer. I've heard nothing but positives from families with prior summer programs. So I do want to just say thank you to Corey and to Carol and our staff just for continuing to run summer programs and provide opportunities for our kids. So and then they said a lot of this is just for informational purposes around just legislative things. So if there are any questions on any of that, I'll be more happy to address this. Yeah.
No questions? All right. I don't have any questions. All right,
Can I go back to a resignation question that I forgot? If not, it's fine.
sure.
Sorry. I just noticed, Janique was moving from food service to a para position, but I didn't see anywhere in the materials where we were looking to replace that food service position. So I wasn't sure if we were moving to just one person in food service or if,
That's my plan. I
Okay.
don't believe that we need to have two people there. I get the job done.
with one person. Okay, okay. Thank you. That was all.
Okay. So I can't remember if I added, the principal's reports were, not on the agenda, and I can't remember if we added it at the beginning, but I'm gonna go rogue here and move on to principal's reports. So who would like to go first? Corey? Great.
Okay, so things at Middletown are off to a great start. The staff have been incredibly helpful. Carol's been helpful. Chris, I've even had the opportunity to meet with Rick on a couple of opportunities to go over things to help with that transition. So that's been great. Had a chance to spend some time with some of the summer school kiddos and hang out with them. That's a lot of fun. One of the things that I'm really looking at right now is planning back to school activities. I am meeting with Ashley, if you're ready, FFE, to talk about the back to school community breakfast that has historically been done at Middletown and continue that, as well as other programs such as Harvest of the Month. And then just talking about what other events does the FFE put on that we can continue to support. I've also been working with Sarah Taylor. She's our new preschool and after school program coordinator for the GRCSU, looking at our after school program. We lost a staff member last year, and I believe that she was the program coordinator. So it's a pretty big position that we need to fill. So I've been working with Sarah on what exactly are the requirements for after school, what we need for staff, licensing requirements of those staff. So we're looking to hire an after school program director. And then Sarah would fill in as the administrator with all the paperwork and of things, making sure that we're up to date with all of the requirements for licensure. The one change that I'm looking to make for this coming year is I do not believe that we're going to be able to offer an after school program for pre-K students. The requirements are different for pre-K after school than it is for K to 6, and it would require us to have a director who fills all of the pre-K requirements. And the only person that we would have on staff in the building would be our pre-K teacher. And just in talking to her, it's not something that she's necessarily looking to take on at this point. But it would certainly be something that we would keep, if we could find the staff, we would keep an open mind and transition to that maybe in the future with Sarah working closely with us throughout this year to improve the program. Other things, Sherry McNeil, our kindergarten teacher, attended U-Fly training. It's the new phonics program that's being piloted by all of our kindergarten teachers throughout the SU. And I think that she's in a great place for that. We were able to purchase her a new interactive panel for her classroom with some ESSER funds to help support the implementation of that program. And then just other things, Scott, Jim, and Will have been doing a great job just getting the school ready for the upcoming year, cleaning, finishing floors. They've been doing a lot of decluttering for me, which is really appreciated. We just had the preschool room flooring redone, so now it's tile and a lot of carpet, which is great. I think that's about it.
Matt?
In terms of the after school for pre-K, it's tricky, right? There's no options for us to maybe combine after school with Wells. We can't put those young kids on a bus, right? There's probably some laws against that, but it's unfortunate. I wish we could offer that.
I hate to get rid of it. But just in looking at staffing and thinking realistically, I feel like our strongest bet moving forward this year is to focus on K to 6 and then to try to bring pre-K back into it and maybe being creative. I don't know how many students you have in pre-K, but I believe that we would be looking at like 2 students in pre-K for after school.
Are families aware now that since there was pre-K after school in the past?
So I will have to reach out to families to let them know, because a hard decision cannot be like just met with Sarah to go over what the regulations are. We will need to reach out to parents as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, I agree with Matt, like that is tricky because we did all of our surveying and we reached out when we did budgeting and it was like after school program was the big, like, we need that. There's no daycares locally, there's not options. And I'm afraid that since we're already losing numbers within our schools, that we're just going to lose a lot more preschoolers with that change. But I don't know. I understand that like you need someone with the credentials, but maybe we should, I don't know.
So we talked a little bit in the last budget cycle about how like my child goes to daycare and I pay per month whether or not she actually shows up and attends. So it's just like a gym membership, right? You pay upfront and it's there for use. And I imagine if we implemented something like that where it currently is a day-to-day sort of fee as you use it, would that help in sort of if you had parents sign up on a month or a monthly basis, use it or lose it kind of situation where you had money that was guaranteed to come in? Would that help in planning and maybe having enough money in there to hire somebody for that position, like that you knew you could staff because you saw the money coming in? I don't know.
Right. So it's funny that you bring that up because that is a conversation that both Carol and I have had with Sarah about changing our model of payment to something that's more weekly or monthly, regardless of how many times your child shows up. Because like, we often have kids who, just come a couple of days a week and it certainly takes up a spot. But I think the challenge right now is not necessarily the funds to pay for the staff members, actually finding the staff who are willing and qualified.
Do you think that the preschool teacher would do it even just for the first month to give parent the time to transition? or
I can
something?
certainly talk to her and see if there's any flexibility in her schedule and what she can do. But the position that she would have to fill is as the director, and there's certain requirements. So as the director, you have to be committing to being in the program more than 50% of the time. And knowing, faculty meetings.
Can we
and things
share
like
a
that.
director between Wells and Middletown? Because we do other 0.5 shared positions.
Right.
Could we share
The wording,
Wells's?
I think we'd have to be careful because the wording says more than 50%. So I think they would have to be there like 51% or more.
Oh, Amanda, what we could do is we could actually have Sarah attend our next meeting.
Okay,
Maybe to talk, there's some questions you're having, which are very good questions.
yeah,
She might be better, more equipped to ask.
okay,
Because there are a lot of things Corey alluded to. Pre-K has a lot of licensing
Yeah.
and red tape around it.
Right.
It's a separate entity. And so we just want to make sure that we're doing it. And I think our goal is obviously to offer an aftercare program for all of our students. And I think we'll look at creative solutions. And while if we look right now and the forecast doesn't look good, that doesn't mean that come September, October, that it may look a little bit differently. So I think we have to think outside the box and look at things, in a different alternatives to
Right.
provide this as well. So.
yeah, or maybe even, I don't know if it's an option, but maybe even families that needed after-school program initially in Middletown could come to Wells just for a couple weeks or whatever until.
Right, and that would be
Okay.
something, again, like Sarah would be more equipped to ask in terms of numbers and, staff. So I
Okay,
think it's where, and I know Karen, you have your hand up, and I'm sorry.
sorry.
Matt, go back to your question. This year, like I said, the paper, the pay model, a lot of the things, we do have, ESSER funds, we have other stuff all set. It goes back to, I think we're having the same problem in a lot of our other schools, is we're just trying to find staff who are willing and able to do this. I know that part of our goals across the SU is to begin working with Boys and Girls Club. So the Boys and Girls Club can offer aftercare programs in all of our schools. What that may look like, that'd be something we'd be looking to transition to, but there is a staffing component to that as well. So it is something, like I said, we do recognize the need for aftercare programming in all of our schools. But we just have to make sure that we have the staff to do that. So.
Kara?
I would encourage Sarah to have a conversation with the Child Development Licensing Division. Currently, the Middletown Pre-K program has one license, not a separate one for the day and the afternoon. So the current pre-K teacher is the director of the program. And if she's there all day, that would in fact meet more than 50% of the program's full hours. So I would ask that clarifying question of child development, because for my foster children, when I've attempted to enroll them and change their subsidy, they say, well, Middletown School only has 2 licenses, one for the after school for K-6 and one for preschool. There's no separate preschool after school license. So it's one license for all of pre-K. So I think if you think of pre-K as one big inclusive of after school, but only some kids access after school, it is one license under which the state fund pays and licenses it. So I would ask that clarifying question because that might reduce the qualifications of staff. Also, I would strongly encourage notifying families as soon as you can. As a parent who this impacts, who has planned for the last year that this service would be in place, to find out last night that it's not going to be there. I think we also need to communicate if these families with pre-K students, if it's possible to put their children in the pre-K in Wells, not just after school, but can they shift their students to the Wells program if that's a service that they need? And honestly, you need to tell them at least 14 days before school starts, because that's when they need to give notice at their current child cares if they're going to opt to not send their kids to Middletown because of this issue. I mean, and that's a reality. Parents need care. So,
Thank you for that.
but I would encourage calling the Child Development Division because there is only one pre-K license.
Thank you.
Matt?
Thanks, Carl. I love that idea. Hopefully that works. this is a non sequitur question. Like, I think this came up last year with, I think it was staff that were working full time and then were participating in after school, and they wanted their rates to be similar or at least higher than what we were offering. And at that time, we didn't. I think there was one individual that wanted us to raise their rates, and we talked about it and we said no, because we weren't going to change their contract, but that we would look at it after the fact when I guess when we were revisiting contracts. Is that something we want to talk about, or something we're gonna change this year in terms of staff that work during the day and then get a lower rate for after school?
Matt, that is something which we'll be looking at across the SU, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I mean, we're not gonna have answers on this at this point till our next meeting. So should we let the parents know?
Let me have another conversation with Sarah to see if there is something that we can do, because I do know that the license being used last year, I just know that we were out of compliance with the state when they would come to observe us. And so maybe we just need to be super clear. We can maintain the same system, but that would potentially mean that our enrollment numbers are going to be smaller. Because I think then we have to go with the pre-K requirements, which is 1 to 10. Whereas if you eliminate pre-K, the ratio is more, so it would drop our capacity down to 20 kids, depending on what we can get for staff. If we can hire another staff member, we can boost it up. I think that we're licensed for 25 if we have appropriate staff.
I mean, if the answers are not good for people with, pre-K students who want to stay after school.
Yeah.
How do we get the word out?
So I will talk to Sarah and I will have a decision before the end and reach out to parents so that they can prepare.
Okay,
That they've got that needed.
you could go through Ashley from FFE and someone from PTO down here could help.
Yep.
Get the word out if need be. Hopefully it's a good answer. Thank you.
All right. Carol?
So I've actually also been talking to Sarah about one of the things that as an administrator, we've been asked to look, because of ESSER funds going away, look at how are we going to make our after-school programs self-sustaining. For us, we have the opposite problem of Middletown. We have been overstaffed. And so that's something that Sarah's I met with her this afternoon as well, just kind of talking about how can we have a better handle on the number of kids that are coming, knowing how many people should be here to staff the program, because we do have the opposite problem. And it's not fiscally responsible to have that many people here with the number of children that we have. We also talked about with that model of needing to be able to have the program pay for itself, preschool is part of the issue. And although they pay $20 a day, which is a different rate than the K-6 pay, it still doesn't, if you only have 2 students there, it's not paying for the staffing that you need to cover the program, and they can't be with the other kids. So they are 2 separate rooms according to us. So that's something else that we're just trying to figure it out. And we have a little bit of flexibility. Sarah's been really great helping us look for options and see what the best model would be. So, on a lighter note, we had a really wonderful summer school experience here. It was truly enjoyable for all of the kids that came. Our building renovations on the front of the building are done and it came in under budget. So that was pretty exciting. And I guess just Corey and I have been working together a lot. And one of the things that I think we're most excited to roll out this year is we are going to do community events as 2 schools. And we're going to do one a month, and we're going to alternate where they take place. But we're pretty excited about it. And we hopefully will have the calendar and dates ready. They definitely will be ready by the next meeting.
Or CBC.
For what? Yeah. Yeah, actually, we just finished the dates right before the meeting, so
They're awesome.
we can kind of look at it, but we're pretty excited. Should be some fun.
All right.
We'll end with a talent show if anyone's interested, if you want to start getting your act together.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah.
I'll work some.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes,
Okay, do that.
yes. I know. And actually, there was $1.10 till the next.
Any questions for Carol? I did have a question. So I thought the Ware grant money that, I thought that, expired.
Okay, so there was an extension
Yep.
and it goes until September 30th. And we had put in proposals. And one of the things that we're working together on is we're continuing the work in restorative practices that we started a leadership team. We actually have to come up with our, I don't know, would you call it a counter proposal?
Yeah.
To Shari Garn, who was the woman that had worked with our team, just to see how to best implement it and do the things we need to do prior to September 30th.
Okay. So, yeah, that's what I was my next question was, like, you don't have to spend the money before it, do you? Or do you have to, okay, so you have to apply, get it and spend, okay, yeah.
Well, the money
We have
is,
to utilize. the
we have to
resources.
utilize the funds that are there by September 30th. We know
Okay,
the money that's available.
all right, cool. And then, I see that, all the handbooks, are in the Google Drive. And, I guess my question is there any significant changes? So I don't have to go and compare each one. Any significant changes for each school? Like,
Ours are highlighted yellow. I don't know about yours.
I should probably go back in and highlight in yellow the pieces that have really changed. We kind of better defined our dress code because there were certain things that came up this year.
okay,
So hopefully there aren't really a lot of questions about it, but, and we had to add certain pieces in that haven't been in there before. But I would say there are, right now, the pieces that are not solid are, the Title I, who is still gathering the information. The after school piece now, just kind of still saying, is that gonna be exactly what it is? And what was the, the MTSs. Just looking to say, is anything gonna be different?
okay,
Otherwise, the way that they are is the way that they'll be.
Yeah.
And we can send out the bill when we have them finalized.
okay. Yeah, no, this is great. This is great.
Some are not all the pieces that are new.
All right. Any other questions for, the principals?
Yes, in this, which I think is a great idea, doing the 2 school events and everything. We had talked about doing, school choice presentation of some kind. Is it possible to piggyback on one or more of those events?
Yeah.
This would be for the older students.
Right.
If they're here anyway, maybe a separate room or something. So we'll look at the schedule.
Most of these are in the evening, right?
There's yes, both
Yeah.
started in the evening, but we're doing a couple of Saturday events. But also you could utilize open house. I mean, it's kind of early in the year,
Yeah,
but I
we
would
need
say,
to, we need to contact
Right.
other schools who may be sending people, so
Yeah.
I don't, yeah,
Or it could
that
be
may
done,
be
like,
too soon.
Before an event, so
Yeah.
that it's a little bit earlier and then the event follows.
Yeah,
I got
yeah, we'll have to take a look at
Yeah.
the schedule and see what we think.
Yeah.
And the other thing was with the in-service, August 23rd and 24th. Are all of the teachers and staff going to be together in one place?
yes,
The 28th and the 29th.
the 28th.
28th,
The 28th
Oh,
is here,
I've got-
CSU, so that is
28th and 29th.
everyone in the SU will be together. And then the 29th, our plan is that we are actually going to get the staff from both buildings together here for a welcome back breakfast, followed by an introductory training to restorative practices and a like introduction to the community engagement calendar, and then and then the staff at Middletown would head back to Middletown.
Okay. Reason I'm asking is we had talked about doing, teacher appreciation. We had to put that off because of the car issues.
Mhm.
So we had talked about doing a breakfast or a lunch. That would be
Breakfast would be wonderful.
perfect time to do it.
That's a great time. Yeah.
Do we have enough time to put that together?
29,
The
yeah.
29.
Yep.
Feel free to come and serve and.
Eric, can you pick that up?
Faculties.
What's that?
Can you pick that up?
Sure.
No, do we have time to put that together? That's
Yeah,
my
well,
question, really.
I think when we talked about it before, the week before school starts would be most appropriate, and that'd be a good time. If,
Which date is the Wells Springs teachers one, not the GRCSU one?
29.
29.
The-
Yep.
Okay, at Wells, okay.
Tuesday.
all right.
What time do I go there? Like 8, 9, 7?
Oh, no, like 7:30.
Say start at 7:30.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah. All right. All right. So if that's it, we'll move on. So there's a chairman's report in the materials, and I just kind of wanted to highlight some stuff. Because, well, first of all, there's a letter from the MWA, in regards to the tennis court and, the need to, the MWA is going to be, I guess, refurbishing this. So, essentially the letter is a request for a donations. This is something that, we don't have to make a decision tonight, but we can, talk about it, probably when we start talking about budget. So I wanted to include that so everyone's aware of basically, correspondence that I get from community members or from the community itself. And then the supervisory union, a lot's been happening at the SU, actually. And so a couple things, just the Wellness Center. So back in May, the Director of Student Services came to the SU board, had a presentation about a wellness center or an alternative center for students. And his report and on the update to that is in the materials as well. And I'm sure we're gonna be hearing more about that as things progress. But I think that's a pretty significant thing to mention that Wellspring students potentially could have that option. The SU board had a retreat, and just to highlight the stuff that was discussed there. So, yeah, just a lot of stuff actually happening over the summer and in between. Any questions on any of this stuff? Yeah, and then the other thing would be the policy contract, service contract stuff. That we also did at the SU level. So the VSBA reviewed our policies and provided input, and the results of that are in the materials as well. And, this is just kind of like, just to show that this is what the policy committee is going to be working on this stuff. So it's relatively new. The next policy committee meeting is the end of this month. So, so just when we thought we're done with policies, we might have more work. But I think it's good stuff. I think it was well worth the money. So there's definitely some important stuff in there that I guess overlooked. But so if there's no other questions, we'll move on to old business. Matt?
Sorry, question on the ESSER funds. So the administrators of each of Wells and Middletown will have 12,000 to spend on wellness.
Yeah, so at the July meeting for the supervisory union, There was, leftover SU funds. There was a recommendation, and the board approved to use this money, and distribute it evenly among all SU administrators. So yeah, and that's what it's for, health and wellness. So.
Well, yeah, and enrichment as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would
Thanks.
imagine, enrichment can be a lot of different things. So
Yes.
that's good.
Eric,
Yeah.
And for, sorry. Well, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
at the SU meeting, we were all invited to a cookout in Proctor. I don't have the date with me, but all the boards were invited to go to that cookout.
Oh, yeah.
This cookout.
Yeah. Lisa's cookout.
I don't remember what the date was.
I'd have to go back and look at my notes. I don't even know if there was a date. So
I think she had one. I'd have to check my notes as well.
I'd be happy to follow up with her.
Would you? Really?
Yeah.
What we're talking about is at the SU meeting, one of the topics was, sharing information and connecting with other schools in the SU. So we were all invited to a annual cookout that they have in Proctor every year. But I don't remember that date. And if I do, I'll send it out. It's in our notes somewhere. But it was a nice gesture, I felt.
Matt?
Hey, the sixth grade night, that's like a big dance or something like that across all the schools? Or what is that kind of event? That was under like goal number 1.
Oh,
Have a sixth grade night.
oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was,
It was part of
yeah, that was,
the discussions to do.
yeah, just some of the ideas and discussions that we had that evening.
Wasn't that around like school choice mostly?
Yes, it's very similar to what
It would help with,
we're discussing.
Yeah.
it would help with that. Yeah, they can see the school.
Oh,
And I
I
think-
see.
I think Matt, what the SU board was talking about is just having a presence, so if, Well Springs has something that we'll have Corey Valley Schools present as well as other local schools as well.
Yeah, because the conversation kind of started about, being on the SU board, we have, what is it, 3 high schools in the SU and multiple elementary schools, but really just not knowing that much about each school. And, for example, and then, so we started talking about other things that, could be SU wide. And just more collaborative. So, it's, that's where that discussion went. And, I think it's a good thing though. But
Just the date, George, I was looking at the calendar. Looks like right now it's being held for August 29th at 5:00.
Thank you.
So
Well, that's the same day as the breakfast.
Yeah.
We do everything in one day.
You don't have to buy anything.
Breakfast and dinner. We can skip lunch.
Yeah, we just have to figure in lunch. That's all.
yeah.
We'll stop at Chris's on the way.
that's right.
Yeah.
Got that new central office.
Oh, yeah.
On the way, that's right.
Be careful.
5 PM. Thank you.
All right. So we're going to move on to old business community engagement. Amanda, I think you had some stuff you wanted to
Oh.
talk about.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you guys an update and kind of ask for your opinion. We discussed doing like a board sponsored picnic at the Little Lake here under the pavilion at the Little Lake Park sometime in September. And we as the committee are happy to do it with just the 3 of us. If the whole board wants to come, that would be awesome. We were thinking we would invite not just Middletown and Wells students and staff, but all community members, aunts, uncles, grandparents, everybody to just come and Maybe bring some horseshoes or cornhole boards or whatever the kids might like. Have a cookout. I'll bring down a grill and some hot dogs. It would be a potluck. Everyone could bring whatever they choose, and it doesn't have to be big and extravagant, just, you know, affordable and fun. And we were thinking probably like a Saturday would be best in September. So we were going to look at the calendar and pick a day, and we can finalize that at our next community engagement meeting. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was, as far as the open house school choice goes, we discussed doing 2 events, one during the day to accommodate our students that may not be available in the evening or on a weekend when school is really the best time to catch them. And then another one for evening and or weekend to accommodate families that are not available during the day. Just that way we really hopefully reach everybody. And I think that was it. Other than that, Ashley plans on coming back to let us know about FFE and what they have going on. I've had a conversation with Carol about their events. I think they have some pretty awesome things planned. So hopefully we can attend that and continue to spread the word. And that's that. So that's where we're at with CEC.
All right.
And then if we do pick a day, a Saturday in September, I could just email everybody if that works, or we can decide on a day tonight if you'd rather pick a date tonight. And then just send the invitation out. I was hoping that since it's after school starts, then the principals could help send like a flyer home with all of the families, and then also an email for those that may not check their email, but also those that may prefer a flyer, just to, again, reach everyone. And then like put it up locally in the stores and post office like we have with other things to include the whole community.
Yep. So you're thinking kind of like a potluck type thing?
Yeah, just a potluck thing. And I'm happy to get hot dogs and bring my grill. And it's kind of what I was thinking I would bring. And then people can bring whatever they want.
Yeah. And you guys are meeting next Monday?
What date is it?
So, okay, the week after next. All
Yeah,
right.
so the week after next.
So yeah, if you want to,
Finalize it.
yeah, finalize the date.
Okay.
And I think that'd be good. I mean,
Okay, and are you gonna bring buns?
yeah, you make it like a sign up or something.
No. I'm not doing a sign up. I'll bring everything with whatever I bring. And then we'll just bring whatever they want, salads or desserts or.
Yeah, I mean,
And I figured we would invite families to bring games or whatever, maybe stick up a little volleyball net, something. 'Cause we can use that whole space.
It's big field here.
Just let the kids play, let the adults mingle, and start our togetherness that really needs to be happening.
okay. Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to policy. Yay. So, so we have, some first read policies in there. If anyone had any, comments about those, suggested changes or questions, that would be good. So the H4 policy, it says rescind on it. And just a kind of refresher, that policy is going to be rescinded next month. So it'll be on the agenda. And the reason why is it was an SU decision. So, and this needs to be rescinded as because of the E11 access control and visitor management. And within that policy is a required policy, and it covers basically access control. And so it makes sense to, and is recommended to eliminate this policy. And F8 is also to be rescinded. And this has been on the agenda before. F7 covers student athletics, clubs, and activities. And basically, there's no need for F8 anymore because this new F7 policy covers that. So we'd be looking for a motion to adopt D10, D11, E10, E11, and F7. And, and of course, F50, our school choice policy.
I have a question.
Yes.
If we make motion to accept all of these tonight, can we state that F50 would start for 24, 25 to allow families a choice for this year, especially now that we may have pre-K issues or potential other things where families may need to use the opposite school? Or would it officially be in place that this coming year would just be we'll talk about it, but it may not happen?
Because the date's already gone by.
Correct. And it does say that it would be after May 1st, it would be discussed on what's the wording? It says applications received after March 1st may be considered on a case-by-case basis, depending on slots still available in individual school choice procedures. But that then just opens another can that I'm not sure, given our current circumstances, we should do right now.
A motion, a motion could be made to adopt this with the start date, but without that, if we adopted it as it is, it would take effect, to answer your question. So, yeah. So, and that is a possibility because the date has passed. The deadline has passed, so that's a good point. But yeah, I mean, does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So, I mean, you could do that. I don't know, the whole, premise of the policy is that it has, I think it outlines,
Right.
so.
I think I get what you're trying to say. Like the purpose of it is to have a deadline, which I agree with, which we should have, but we should also notify families before the deadline is passed that a potential deadline is on the way.
Right.
So even if we made it effective January 1st, or, whatever the last day of school is in June, or which we can't even do that because then they would miss the next year. So say like effective January 1st, this is our new policy. You have until January to figure out if you need a transfer or not. And effective January 1st, here's our new F50. That I think would make more sense rather than telling them now when they've already missed the deadline and then potentially missing the deadline for a second time.
Well, even in our current policy as it stands, the deadline's the same. It's still March 15th. So even in our current policy, it still has that same deadline,
But it's maybe.
and then, so the deadline's passed no matter what. And the thing about this one though, is it does say applications after may be considered on a case by case, but the other one doesn't. So, I mean, just something to think about. I think what you're saying makes sense, but, I don't think it matters either way. But that's just my thought.
I mean, if pre-K did become an issue, you said the numbers are to a couple, that might,
2 students were identified.
yeah. Exactly.
That doesn't.
But that would be our out. We needed it. We'll consider it. Isn't that good enough? Don't like it?
Okay.
It's tough when you've got dates written in there
I
and
know.
we're approving it halfway through.
Yeah.
It is, but I
Yeah.
think that's all right.
So then where procedurally are individual school choice procedures defined?
What do you mean? The procedures?
I know, and they hate when you ask about procedures, but like, what is that? What does that mean?
Well, I don't think there's any procedures for this policy
I think maybe that's the other
Um,
piece.
because, you know, it just has a implementation.
I just think we're missing stuff still.
That, man, I think the policy states the process and procedure to go through that 50 does.
Yeah, the implementation is basically you know, how the policy is carried out. And, you know, but the whole reason why this policy is simply because it allows building administrators to plan for next year. You know, and, I think that, having all these factors considered, it also makes it very specific too. But
So I guess I agree with you. And I think that's why we're in some of the situations we're in, right? Is because this deadline it didn't happen. People made decisions after this deadline. But I guess that's also my point. Like, if it's going to be considered on a case-to-case basis, based on procedures that we don't really know what they are, then the same thing could just continue to happen because it can still be considered case-to-case.
What do you mean procedures?
Because it says on individual school choice procedures in the application, in the top paragraph. But those individual school choice procedures aren't really clear anywhere. So potentially someone could still say in July, we're not coming in August, and you know, like, we can't really, it's not really fixing our problem.
Just a reminder, this is a second read. This board has reviewed this, discussed this,
Yeah.
gone through this, and
well, I'll also add the application doesn't go with the policy. So it's attached to it, but we would be adopting the policy itself, not the application. The application is something that can be changed. Yeah, because it's not good practice to have something like that attached to a policy. So, I mean, if that's you made a good point, but the policy itself doesn't talk about procedures. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. I think, in a lot of policies, when we see a lot of these policies, it'll say, you know, something like, superintendent will develop procedures, you know, to accompany this policy. Those are, you know, administrative procedures and stuff. And unless a policy, you know, and I don't even know if that's true, but, you know, if a policy doesn't specifically state that there are procedures to accompany it, I don't think they're generally developed, you know, but
This really only affects between Wells and Middletown.
Yeah.
So still, if we are doing a school choice policy, should we somewhere incorporate if you're going to switch in sixth grade for Long Trail or elsewhere? Is there also a deadline for that? Because this is only saying if you decide to go to Middletown, here's this, but we have a lot of other school choice that I think we missed that when we reviewed this over and over again. Because we were so stuck on including Middletown too.
can you, I'm just
referring to deadline.
right. I think the purpose, my understanding of this was just to tighten up the ebb and flow of movement between schools. So it's either the choice the board made was either we're going to just say that there's a fluidity to movement amongst the two schools, or we're going to tighten it up so that Carol and Corey and the staff can have a better understanding in terms of the numbers of each of their buildings. So I'm not quite sure about the long trail, because I don't think that really
I guess
applies to this.
I just, because it says elementary school choice, K through 6, Like we have sixth graders that are making school choice as well, but they don't have a deadline.
But that's a separate
So I,
issue.
that was my thing, like, should that be included here?
No, because that has nothing to do with us. This,
Maybe
this policy is just about movement between Wells and Middletown Springs. That's
Okay.
Long Trail, you know, or Corey Valley School, Mill River, Rutland High will set their own deadline for, you know, when they want to apply. And it's really, to be honest, they can enroll at any time.
Right, so maybe it's just a titling thing that I'm overthinking. Maybe it's like inter-district school choice policy or something. Because I think when I read it, elementary school choice policy, it's also interpreted that if your sixth grader or fifth grader is going to change and you haven't done that by March, then you don't know, but it's also not fair to not tell us until July. So that's, I guess, where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, but no matter what we put on a policy, we have no control over that because our articles of agreement, you know, state school choice. And so that was one of the things that, you know, with the merger is part of that. And, you know, it's not the first time it's happened, you know, having students, you know, go from sixth grade from here somewhere else, but in either school. But I know exactly what you're
Maybe
getting
we
at.
just change the title. Or
Um,
maybe we just pretend I never talked about it and call it second read.
What?
I mean, man, I know I'm trying to reword, but
Um,
you're saying that in the second sentence, if you had something around children entering grades K through 6 who live in the towns of Middletown Springs and Wells, next is school choice within the Wells Springs Unified Union School District.
yeah, or even just the title where it says elementary school choice policy, just say inter-district or like Wells Springs, or clearly say Middletown and Wells school choice policy. And then define it in the next paragraph, because I just think this does not include our sixth graders. Even though it says K-6, this doesn't include our sixth graders that can go to Long Trail for sixth grade, or even now that we have Green Mountain and Poultney. This is only talking about Middletown and Wells, and we have other districts, other schools locally that are now also a choice, and that should be included. And I think we missed it initially, and we should either come up with a second policy to incorporate that, or send this back to Eric with a big smile and say, we missed it.
Well, we
Because I think we did.
we work on this as a board,
I know, I only said your
And-
policy.
and wasn't, well,
I meant to your committee.
well, we are the committee on this specific policy. You know, so, I'll say that, you know, again, this policy has nothing to do with school choice outside of Wells Springs. In the policy statement, it specifically talks about Wells Springs Unified Union School District between the schools of Middletown Springs and Wells. And so to allow options for families within this district. And I don't think there's anything we could put in a policy to say that if you're exiting the district, and I don't know if this is what you're getting at, if you're exiting the district, you have to tell us, you know.
Should it say within the supervisory union? Because someone could technically say that their private school is in our district town. It's just not part of our,
Well, our students have school choice. So if, it would be different if they didn't have school choice. And I think like what, Corey Valley, they,
So, yeah.
when they formed, they put something in their articles to say that you can't, you know, go outside.
Currently in Corey Valley,
Yeah.
that students have to attend schools within their own
Yeah,
town. They'll discuss at a later date whether or not they want to open that up with that. But right now, if a student within Corey Valley, like say a Proctor High School student wants to attend West Rutland, they would have to go through the school choice for high school. And so therefore that, you know, we'd have a spot of, you know, open out, and then West Rutland have a spot open in. So currently we don't have that inter-district acceptance. It really is, they have to go through the formal school choice policy. So it's seen as no different than going from Proctor to Rutland High School or Mill River. Even within this, that's something which the board would just have to decide if they want to change, but in the bylaws,
Yeah.
that's how it's written.
And so we would have to change ours to do something like that too. Otherwise, that's just my thought. When it comes to this,
I feel like this is great for Wells and Middletown, and that's what we had at our forefront when we came up with this and like did it. But Green Mountain and Holtley wasn't a thing when we first started talking about this. That's a new addition. And like kids going to Long Trail, that's becoming a greater number of tuition over there. Like there weren't as many kids doing that before. And I just think that because of that, that's how we missed it. And now that we have more families utilizing those, I just don't know.
So to be clear, Amanda, our students do not have school choice K through 6. They can't choose to go to Long Trail as a 5th grader, and they could do that, but they pay tuition. It's only when they exit out of 6th grade that they have school choice. So as a 7th grader, they can attend wherever, but as a 5th grader, they can attend where they want, but the parents will have to pay tuition.
So choice is a bad word.
Right. So there's school choice within this district, but not without. And that's maybe what you're saying is the water's a little muddy.
Yeah.
With that terminology, but like I said, a parent of a 4th grader should not read this and interpret it as, well, then my kid can go to Long Trail and you're going to pay for it for the next 3 years. No, that's not the case. With the K through 6, this school, so the family has every right to have their child enroll where they want, but within K through 6, they would have to pay tuition for that when they matriculate out. So as a 7th grade, that's when they can attend whatever school they want.
Okay. So sorry, I've wasted a lot of time on this. Can I make a motion to adopt F50 effective January 1st? And between now and then, there's a discussion that happens, we can reconsider.
what did you say, January what?
Yeah, adopt F50 effective January 1st of 2024.
Okay. All right, just discussion. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I see what you did there. I do think that the start date isn't going to make any difference on this policy. All right.
Can we add to that, approving the second reads and then rescinding F8?
Yeah, totally.
Is that-
Well, we'll do it. She made,
wanna do them
no, she made this motion. We'll do this one and then we'll do the other ones. So if there's no other discussion on Amanda's motion to adopt F50 January 1st, 2024, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. All right. And so we would still need a motion for D10, D11, E10, E11, F7 to adopt those.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Motion by George. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then a motion to rescind F8.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Kara. No other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries. All righty, and no other policy-related issues? Sounds good, we'll move on. To public comment. Did anyone want to have any public comments tonight at the end of our meeting? Okay. All right, future meeting dates and agenda items. So So I put August 23rd, at 6 PM, for everyone that, everyone responded to the email about, Kathy, not being able to do what we had planned at the end of our retreat, and that was to come back at our regular board meetings and finish the facilitation. So I do gotta apologize because I don't think I sent the email to either of you. I'm so sorry about that. And I didn't realize that until about 10 minutes ago. So that's why that's on there. And so, you know, I just want to thank everyone for, you know, making time to do that too. You know, I'll just say that, you know, potentially as we go forward with the retreats, maybe scheduling more time in one session. You know, but she can do that, and it's at Middletown Springs. If no one has any objections to that, that works out better for her too. So, and then our next meeting is September 13th. So, if there's no other business,
Can you, sorry, I missed what time, like, so can you clarify which day and which time? I got
Oh.
that it's in Middletown, like, when is the retreat follow-up? Sorry.
the 23rd at 6 PM. Yep. And I got your email too, so awesome. All right, and then our next regular meeting is on the 13th. So, all right, I think that covers everything. So, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Motion to adjourn by Amanda at 7:32. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Good night, everyone.